What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another comparison video. So prior to this one, I actually put out a Vorkath versus Zulrah comparison video, and I figured, you know what? Let's do an alt account too. Big argument over Brutal Black Dragons versus Rune Dragons. So what I want to do here is take a look at basically the pros and cons of Brutal Blacks and Rune Dragons, and that is because they are both viable alt accounts depending on how you look at things. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to check out access requirements first for Brutal Black Dragons. First thing you will need to do to access the Brutal Black Dragons is talk to Veos in Port Sarim. This guy will take you over to Zeah in a boat, and that is literally all you have to do to access the continent. After that, you'll want to find the transportation incantations in the Archaeus library. This will allow you to use the teleport that will take you over to Great Karen. You'll also want to have 50 construction to build a Karen portal in your house. That way you can just go to your house, use the portal, and it'll take you over there. You will need 69 magic to direct the portal, which is the magic level that you need to use the Karen teleport. And you'll also need 77 Slayer at a minimum. Well, actually your minimum is 72 with the Wild Pie, as it does boost Slayer level by 5 levels, but 77 is not too hard to get, so I would just suggest getting 77. As for the Rune Dragons access requirements, Dragon Slayer 2 must be completed for you to access the Rune Dragons, and that is a lot of stuff. You'll need to do 32 preceding quests for Dragon Slayer 2 to be completed. You'll also need some medium skill levels: 75 magic, 70 smithing, 68 mining, 62 crafting, 60 agility and thieving, 50 construction, and 50 hit points. None of these skills are boostable, so you have to get these levels to complete Dragon Slayer 2, and once you do all that, everything else will fall into place, and then you can access the Rune Dragons. One bullet point I don't have on here is you will also need to get the enchanted dig site pendant afterwards, so you can actually use the teleport to Lithcrin, which will take you pretty much directly outside of the Rune Dragon's lair. So as for the access requirements aspect to get to Brutal Black Dragons or Rune Dragons, as for the one that you're probably going to want to go with, I'm going to give this one to the Brutal Black Dragons, because getting all of this stuff really takes a lot less time than it's going to take you to do all the quests for Dragon Slayer 2. You'll also need 200 quest points and the 32 preceding quests and everything else to get there. So yeah, this one's going to the Brutal Black Dragons. Next up is going to be the combat requirements for Brutal Black Dragons. You'll probably want to have at least level 85 plus ranged if you plan on camping here for a while, and that is with the blowpipe, the rune crossbow, dragon crossbow, or armadillo crossbow. If you can get your hands on a dragon hunter crossbow or twisted bow, 80 plus ranged will probably do it for you. You'll want to have a minimum prayer level of 37 or 44, depending on how you want to look at it. 37 is the minimum for the Protect from Magic prayer, which is all you'll need at Brutal Black Dragons. Or if you want to combine that with the Eagle Eye prayer and camp that, you'll need level 44 prayer. As for the gear requirements, they are minimal. You can easily do this in Void, and Void is free. It does just take some time to get, but Blessed D'hide is usually the thing to use here, since you will be using prayer, and it gives you a decent prayer boost. Anti-fire and Protect from Magic negates all damage at the Brutal Black Dragons. If you're ranging them, you just stand away from them, throw up the Protect from Magic prayer, drink a dose of your anti-fire potion, and you are good to go. You will take no damage. For the combat requirements for the Rune Dragons, I'm going to say you're probably going to want to have at least level 85 plus attack and strength for at least some decent DPS. Obviously, higher levels will do you better. You want to have at least level 80 defense, 70 plus prayer for the Piety prayer, and you're going to need a Zamorakian Hasta at a minimum at the Rune Dragons as a weapon, because pretty much they are weak to stab, and anything else is just really not going to do much for you. So the Zamorakian Hasta is going to be your minimum weapon there. All the way up to the Dragon Hunter Lance, which is going to be the best in slot for the Rune Dragons, but that does have quite a high overhead cost. You'll also want to have some decent defensive gear, because they do use all 3 different attack styles: magic, ranged, and melee, so you can take decent damage. You'll be protecting for magic at the Rune Dragons, but they will still pummel you with the ranged and melee attacks if you don't have decent gear. As for the peripheral gear, you're going to want to have decent stuff through there too, the amulet and the boots, because you want the most DPS at the Rune Dragons that you can get. And a Dragon Fire Shield is preferred. because of the good defense that it provides. It also provides strength bonus and the protection from dragon fire. So looking at our combat requirements here, I am once again going to give this section to the Brutal Black Dragons because it is much less strenuous to get the stuff required for Brutal Blacks than it is for Rune Dragons. Next up, we're going to check out our income and drops comparison. For the Brutal Black Dragons, your average kill, 27.6k at the time of this video, so not too bad. It's pretty good income. Regardless of what level you are, you're seeing almost 28,000 GP every time you kill it. 100% drops, 2 black dragon hides and dragon bones, so that's 8,400 GP that is guaranteed every time you kill a Brutal Black Dragon. The drops are consistent, very consistent here. The drop table is good. Most of the stuff on there is going to net you quite a bit of money, so I wouldn't worry about drops being inconsistent or not seeing a lot of money here. They do have many alchable drops as well, so you might consider bringing a rune pouch to extend your trips a little bit. Kills per hour range, depending on the weapon and the range level, you can see somewhere at a minimum if you're going by the suggested requirements. 25 to 75 kills per hour here. Once again, that is based on level and weapon. And your profit per hour, you're probably going to see somewhere between 500,000 all the way up to 1.85 million with the Twisted Bow and the Rigor Prayer active. For the Rune Dragons, your income and drops average kill at the time of this video is right around 36,400 GP, so a little bit higher than the Brutal Black Dragons. Your 100% drop also higher, 14.5k. They do drop a rune bar every kill and dragon bones. Drops are consistent, just like the Brutal Black Dragons. No matter what, you're probably going to see a good amount of consistent drops here. They also have many alchable drops as well, so you might want to bring your rune pouch with you once again to the Rune Dragons. Kills per hour, somewhere between 30 and 55 going on the recommended requirements and weapons here. All the way at the bottom end with the Zamorak and Hasta, probably going to see somewhere around 30. And if you have good gear and a Dragon Hunter Lance, you'll probably see somewhere around 55 at the top end. Profit per hour, on the low end, it is higher than the Brutal Black Dragons, 850,000. But on the top end, you might see about 100,000 GP less per hour than you will at the Brutal Black Dragons with the Twisted Bow. And that is because of that sheer number of kills per hour you can get in with the Twisted Bow and the Rigor Prayer active. So for this section, as for the income and drops, I'm actually not going to give this to either one of them because they're both pretty much comparable near the top end income. Regardless of kills per hour there, we're going to see somewhere between 1.75 and 1.85 million at the top end for both of these, just based on their consistent income and drops and the way that they are able to be killed. So I will say this one is a tie. Next up is going to be our overall pros and cons for both of these monsters. First up, Brutal Black Dragons, our pros. Any account style can camp the Brutal Black Dragons. You can be a pure with 1 defense. It doesn't matter. You're not going to take any damage as long as you have anti-fire potions and protect from magic. Consistent income regardless of your level. So what I mean by that is like maybe around 500,000 GP per hour at the low end. And if you're still using that low end gear, it's not going to come up very much, but you will always see pretty much the same amount of income based on your weapon and levels. Brutal Blacks are a great alt account for side money because of our next bullet point. Requirements do not take that long to get. Overall, 77 Slayer and a decent range level really doesn't take too long to get. It requires a relatively low overhead startup cost. You can do this with a rune crossbow if you really choose to do so, or the dragon crossbow is not that much more expensive, maybe around 2 mil or so. So startup cost pretty low. This is viable for a Dragon Hunter crossbow rebuild as well, and it can be very AFK if you're not using the Rigor or Eagle Eye Prayer. It will take your profit per hour down, but you'll still see good income. As for our cons, better money can be made elsewhere if you are lower range level and weapon. Just for a quick comparison, if you're like sitting around 80 ranged or something like that, but the rest of your combat stats are probably around 80 as well, you can actually see better money from something from like Barrows, assuming you don't have a Dragon Hunter crossbow or Twisted Bow. It is usually crowded because of income is easy and there are a decent amount of bots that hang out at the Brutal Black Dragons, so keep an eye out for that. For the Rune Dragons, they can be semi-AFK. What I mean by this is you will take damage because they do use all 3 styles of the combat triangle, so there's no way to negate all the damage. Consistent income regardless of your level. Basically the same thing I was talking about with the Brutal Black Dragons applies here as well. Rune Dragons are a great alt account for side money, and they are viable for a Dragon Hunter Lance rebuild. As for the drops, they do drop a rune bar every kill, so if you're here for a while, those rune bars are going to stack up. You could use them for something like smithing experience. As for the cons, few more than Brutal Black Dragons. Starting gear is more expensive. Once again, you are going to need some decent starting gear to take less damage and do more damage. Higher stats are required. It's going to take you longer to get those higher stats up for the Rune Dragons than it is for the Brutal Black Dragons. Cannot be done on pures or low levels. If you are on a lower level account, you're just going to take way too much damage. Your trips are going to be short, and it's really not going to be worth your time. You'll be able to make better money somewhere else. It does take a long time to get the quests and stats and viable gear for camping for the Rune Dragon for the average player. Those of you out there that are more well off, you might not see this as a con, but for the average player, definitely is a con. And the last con is money is similar to Brutal Black Dragons at higher levels. So it's a lot easier to do Brutal Black Dragons than it is Rune Dragons, and you're going to see somewhere around the same amount of income. So as for an overall decision, I am going to give this one to the Brutal Black Dragons 100%. The Brutal Black Dragon alt account is so much easier to set up than the Rune Dragons alt account. It's going to take you a lot less time, require less overhead cost, and once you get up into the higher levels of what this alt can achieve, you're going to see a similar income to the Rune Dragons. Even if you're on a main account, I'm still gonna give it to the Brutal Black Dragons. If your main account is your only account and you're looking for something to camp AFK in your spare time just to make a little bit of extra money, Brutal Black Dragons are really easy to do. Protect from magic, anti-fire potion, stand a few steps away, and range away. Rune Dragons, you do have to pay some attention to. They will KO you if you're not paying close enough attention. And obviously Brutal Black Dragons will too, but it's much easier to just keep your prayer up every 30, 45 seconds, drink a dose of prayer potion, go back to whatever you were doing. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up there. I hope that this video has been able to help you to decide if you are going to make a Brutal Black Dragon alt or a Rune Dragon alt. I could also say, I hope it helps you decide which one you might just want to camp if you're looking for some extra money. I think I had a lot of good points in this video, and it's not in a huge, super exhaustive list of everything that can be good or bad about these, but this is all the points that matter the most to me if I were making an alt or if I were planning on camping one of these monsters. So if you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up down below. They really do help the video's popularity. If you haven't done so yet, tap that subscribe button on your way out. All of your guys' support means a ton to me. Don't forget, my Discord is public, so is my clan chat. You guys can always come in if you have questions or if you're looking for some help with something. Please feel free to join the Discord or the clan chat. You can find that information in the description below. I will see you guys on the next one. Take it easy, everybody.